Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Tanks with a mighty Jingles, and today we have a fairly interesting and entertaining replay for you, I'm sure you're going to agree. This is Swib 2 Player, but we all know and love him as Dave, because I'm not repeating that all the way through the course of this video. Dave certainly gets around a bit, doesn't he? I actually met Dave at Tiger Day this weekend, as I finished up filming the arena display. Dave and a whole bunch of people were waiting to say hello as I went to leave. I was talking to everybody who was waiting to see me, and this young chap came up and thrust his hand out and said, "Hi, I'm Dave." I said, "Wow, you play a lot of World of Tanks, don't you? How do you find the time?" Anyway, Dave here, don't worry, I'm sure the two aren't related, is in the WZ-120 FT. Try saying that when you've had a few beers. The FT, of course, standing for Fake Tank. It's a mythical Chinese tank destroyer. Obviously, World of Tanks have just released the completely fictional Chinese tank destroyer line. And if they're going to introduce a completely fictional Chinese tank destroyer line, they also have to introduce a completely fictional Tier 8 Chinese premium tank destroyer to go with it. It's based on the Type 59, the one that he just bounced off the side of. Because there's no justice in the world. The gun on this thing is actually very, very good. Actually, the whole machine is very, very good. The armour at the front is 120mm. This isn't like the other Chinese premium tank destroyers, it just looks like them. It's actually very well armoured, as well as being 120mm thick across the whole of the upper plate, and the front of this tank is basically all upper plate. It's sloped back at a ridiculous degree, which means that the effective armour thickness of that 120mm of armour is more like 200. There's even a reinforced section of armour that's 140mm thick right below the gun barrel, and thanks to sloping, that's more like 230mm of effective thickness. Oh, watch this shot. Ding! Bounced. Ricocheted. Hit the Scorpion G. Yeah, well, you know, what can we say? World of RNG. The gun is also rather good. Once you've finished upgrading and adding modules to this tank, it's going to have 3000 damage per minute, and unlike, for example, Stalin's hammer at tier 7, the SU-122-44, this thing's got the penetration to back it up. 248mm of penetration with standard armour-piercing ammunition. The mobility is very good. It's based on the chassis of a Type 59, and it has just short of 16 horsepower per tonne power to weight ratio, top speed of 50 km per hour. The accuracy of the gun isn't bad at all, with 0.35 dispersion at 100 meters. The firing arc of the gun is pretty bad. It can only swing the gun 10 degrees to either side of dead center, but it's better than, well, for example, most Soviet tank destroyers, like the SU-122-54, which can only swing the gun 8 degrees to either side. In fact, this thing compares very, very favourably to a machine like the SU-122-54, which wouldn't be too bad if the SU-122-54 wasn't a Tier 9 tank destroyer. The two machines do compare quite well. The SU-122-54 is just that little bit better in most respects, except for mobility and armour, where the WZ-121G fake tank is just that little bit better. But the WZ-122-54 is Tier 9. This thing's only Tier 8, and it's a premium, so it earns more money, and it earns more credits. And it doesn't have the same matchmaking. Oh, one other area where the WZ-120 does actually have the edge over the SU-122-54 is in shell velocity. Now, this isn't something that you can tell from looking at the stats on the tank in the garage, but an armour-piercing shell leaving the gun barrel of the SU-122-54 travels at 940 meters per second. On this thing, 1000 meters per second, so it's actually easier to hit the target with this tank. Now, things are not going too well for Dave in this battle. He's spent most of the game camping in this bush, getting hit by artillery, and slaughtering lower tier tank destroyers. And what's about to befall his team, as the fail train gets utterly slaughtered in the centre of the town over there, you could argue, and I'm sure you will in the comments, that it's partially Dave's fault, because he spent far too long camping in that bush. With the effective frontal armour on this thing, it's not like other tank destroyers where you really don't want to get involved in a city fight. He could have been quite useful in the town. Then again, he hasn't been completely useless where he was. He hasn't done a huge amount of damage, but, well, neither has anybody else on his team. At the end of this match, there's only 2 other tanks on his team that will have done more than 1,000 damage. Now, of course, he's really going to have to start making up for it, because he is now the last tank left alive on his team against 8 enemies. Make that 7 enemies. That was very brave of the Cromwell. Yeah, we'll be generous and say it was bravery. Oh, there's the artillery. Time for a spot of revenge. Let's see whether we can make this 6 enemies. Right, they're being capped, but, well, it's 6 against 1, so there's probably a fair amount of no cap kill all going on in the enemy team chat. Having said that, well, there's probably going to be somebody farming loser points in the cap circle, probably one of the tier 6s, and you can't really blame them. Oh, hello, there's that Type 59. 5 enemies remaining. Bounced more shots from the front, including from the Scorpion G, who is hiding behind the building. He really doesn't want to get hit again. There's the Type 59, who has been set on fire and is too cheap to use a fire extinguisher. 4 enemies remaining. Bounced another shot from the front, from the Scorpion G, which is not a bad tier 8 tank destroyer either. Is he going to go for the ram? Nope. 3 enemies remaining. Now, he's still being capped, but this is encounter mode, so it takes a long time to manage a successful cap in this variant of World of Tanks, and this is a very fast tank destroyer. So, well, he could loop around from the south and attack the cap circle from that direction if he wanted to. He's certainly got the time and the speed to do it, but he takes the direct route. And, oh, there's the AMX. Missed the shot from the T-28, gets immobilised but blows the tracks right off the AMX-12T as well, and his repair kit is obviously on cooldown. Fixes his own tracks, closes in, finishes him off. Where is the VK? Must be in the cap circle. Obviously hiding around the corner, or is he going to come out and attempt to take a shot? He did come out, but he's not able to take a shot. Well, he did, but he missed. And there goes the T-28 prototype. That just leaves the VK3002D. And the 75mm gun on that thing, or even the 88mm gun on that thing, is never going to penetrate the front of the WZ-120 1G fake tank. He really should. Instead of trying to back away from Dave, he should be trying to get around him. Then again, good luck with that, because, well, this thing is basically a Type 59 with a really, really big forward-firing gun. And he's trying to run away, but, well, the VK might be a fast Tier 7 German medium tank, but it's not as fast as one of the shots fired by this thing. So, that's what you have to do to get an ace tanker in the WZ-120 1G fake tank. You know, no pressure. Just slaughter 8 of the enemy team, single-handed. Unsurprisingly, Kolobanov's medal for standing alone against multiple enemies there and winning. Radley Walters for the 8 kills. Steel Wall medal, he actually bounced more than 3,000 damage with the armour. Luckily nobody had the sense to try to shoot at him from the side, where his side armour is actually worse than on a Type 59. High caliber, and of course the Top Gun. Well, if you look at the team scores, there it is. 6,294 damage done. Only 2 other tanks on his team, and one of them was a Tier 7 that managed to score more than 1,000 damage in the entire game. Shocking. Well, it should be shocking, but it's actually fairly standard. You see this time and time again when you're looking at the post-battle stats of a game of World of Tanks. 3 or 4, or in some cases just 1 or 2, or in some cases just 1 tank on your team doing all of the heavy lifting, while everybody else might not necessarily be bad players, but they're having a bad game. And in World of Tanks, that's usually the difference between a win and a loss. If your team has 2 players, which isn't unusual, who can actually tell the difference between their arse and their elbow, and the enemy team has 3 or 4 players who can tell the difference between their arse and their elbow, then the enemy team is usually going to win. The other 22 or 23 players involved in the battle are nothing more than cannon fodder and meat shields for the very few players who are actually capable of thinking and breathing at the same time. As you can quite clearly see by looking at the amount of damage done on the enemy team, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players who managed to do more than 1,000 damage, which isn't great. But if Dave hadn't been there, it would have been enough. So in this case, just 1 player doing superhuman amounts of carrying was able to swing the balance in the other direction. Dave's entire team between them only managed to do 7,168 damage. And this is a Tier 8 game, so that's about 3 or 4 enemy tanks between them. Okay, they did kill more than that between them, but don't forget, Dave had done nearly 2,000 damage before he started killing tanks. He didn't actually start killing anything until he was the last one left alive on the team. And then he had to kill everything in order to win. So, hooray for Dave, the world's most prolific World of Tanks player. And of course you do that amount of heavy lifting in a Tier 8 Premium, and you just watch the credits roll in. Look at that. Even after paying his expenses, he made 124,000 credits. That's one thing with the Tier 8 Premium. It doesn't matter how badly you do. You could go AFK at the start of the game and you would still make a profit. But when you do over 6,000 damage, you start seeing really, really big numbers. So, yeah, Dave, very proud of himself after that result, and, well, who can blame him? Hope you enjoyed today's video, folks, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.